Hello everybody, welcome again to my channel. I'm Shadow, and my channel is for mystery, drama, investigation, creepy stories, and so along. If you want me to talk about a story you have in mind you're interested in, just let me know in the comments or send it to me on the channel email. I'll do it gladly. In the twilight of the Russian Empire, amid the shadows of war and revolution, a Siberian peasant named Grigori Rasputin rose from obscurity to become the most enigmatic and reviled figure at the Tsar's court. With piercing eyes that seemed to pierce souls and a charisma that healed the heir to the throne, he whispered secrets to the empress, toppled ministers, and indulged in nights of debauchery that scandalized a nation, until a fateful plot of poison, bullets, and icy waters sought to end his unholy reign. But was he a saint, a charlatan, or the harbinger of doom for the Romanovs? Let us not take any longer and dive into the story to reveal its secrets. Don't forget to show us love and support. And let's get into it. Grigori Yefimovich Rasputin entered the world on January 21, 1869, in the isolated village of Pokrovskoye, nestled along the Tura River in the Tyumansky uezd of the Tobolsk Governorate, now part of the Yarkovsky district in Tyumen Oblast, Russia. This remote outpost, far from the glittering capitals of Moscow and St. Petersburg, was a world of endless winters, vast forests, and hardy peasants eking out a living from the unforgiving land. Official church records confirm his baptism the following day, naming him after Saint Gregory of Nyssa, whose feast coincided with the event. The choice of name, Grigori meaning watchful or alert, would prove ironically fitting for a man whose piercing gaze became legendary. His father, Yefim Yakovlevich Rasputin, 1842–1916, was a quintessential Siberian peasant, a farmer by trade, but also a church elder and occasional government courier, transporting documents and goods between Tobolsk and Tyumen on horse-drawn sleds across treacherous terrain. Yefim's life was one of quiet resilience, marked by the rhythms of agriculture and Orthodox faith. Rasputin's mother, Anna Vasilyevna Parshakova, circa 1840–1906, hailed from a similar background. She married Yefim in 1863, and together they endured the hardships typical of rural Russia. The family was not destitute. Yefim owned land, horses, and cattle, but life was precarious. Of the couple's 9 children, some sources suggest 8. Only Grigori and possibly a sister named Feodosia survived beyond early childhood. The high infant mortality rate in Siberia, due to disease, malnutrition, and harsh climate, claimed siblings like Maria, Yevdokia, and others in infancy. Everyone, please pardon my cracked Russian language. Young Grigori's early years are shrouded in obscurity, what historian Douglas Smith aptly calls a black hole in the historical record. Unlike the well-documented lives of nobility, peasant biographies relied on oral traditions and sparse parish registers. What emerges is a portrait of a rambunctious boy, illiterate like most in his milieu, who engaged in typical village mischief. Drinking homemade kvass or vodka, petty thefts from neighbors, and clashes with local authorities. Rumors later exaggerated these into serious crimes: horse theft, blasphemy, or false witness, but no contemporary evidence supports such claims. Instead, Grigori helped on the farm, tending livestock and learning the ways of the land. His physical strength was notable, tall and broad-shouldered. With unkempt hair and a beard that would become his trademark, he embodied the raw vitality of Siberian peasantry. Education was non-existent in Pokrovskoye. Schools were rare in rural Russia, and Grigori never mastered reading or writing fully, though he later learned rudimentary literacy during his monastic sojourns. His worldview was shaped by Orthodox Christianity, folk tales, and the superstitions of the peasantry, beliefs in spirits, healers, and divine interventions that would later fuel his mystical persona. By his mid-teens, Grigori was known for his wandering spirit, often disappearing into the forests for days, contemplating nature or engaging in youthful escapades. These habits foreshadowed his future as a strannik, or holy wanderer. At 17, in 1886, Grigori's life took a domestic turn during a visit to the nearby town of Abalak, 250 kilometers east-northeast of Tyumen. There, he met Praskovia Fedorovna Dubrovina, a sturdy peasant girl 3 years his senior. Their courtship was swift. They married in February 1887 in a simple Orthodox ceremony. Praskovia, devoted and uncomplaining, remained in Pokrovskoye throughout Grigori's later adventures, managing the household and raising their children. The marriage produced 7 offspring, but tragedy struck again. Four died young, leaving Dmitry, born 1895, Maria, 1898, and Varvara, 1900, to survive into adulthood. Rasputin cherished his family, often posing for photographs with them to project an image of paternal normalcy amid growing scandals. These images, preserved in archives, show a bearded giant surrounded by wide-eyed children, a stark contrast to his notorious reputation. Yet, domesticity did not tame Grigori's restless soul. By the 1890s, he was increasingly drawn to spiritual matters, influenced by local pilgrims and tales of holy sites. This period marked the beginning of his transformation from peasant to mystic, a journey that would propel him into the heart of Russia's elite. The pivotal moment in Rasputin's life came in 1897, at age 28, when he abruptly left Pokrovskoye for an extended pilgrimage, abandoning Praskovia with their infant son Dmitry and another child on the way. Explanations for this departure vary across sources. Some contemporaries claimed it was to evade punishment for horse theft, a charge unsubstantiated but persistent in anti-Rasputin propaganda. Others, including Rasputin himself in later accounts, described a divine vision, an apparition of the Virgin Mary or Saint Simeon of Verkhoturye urging him toward holiness. Historian Joseph T. Furman posits a more psychological motive, an emotional crisis triggered by personal failings or a search for meaning beyond village drudgery. Whatever the catalyst, this pilgrimage lasted several months and irrevocably altered his path. Rasputin's first stops included the Holy Znamensky Monastery at Abalak and Tobolsk's Grand Cathedral, but the transformative experience occurred at the St. Nicholas Monastery in Verkhoturye, a revered site in the Ural Mountains. There, he encountered Makary, a humble Starets spiritual elder, living as a hermit in the woods. Makary's ascetic lifestyle, prayer, fasting, and manual labor, profoundly humbled the young peasant. Rasputin spent weeks or months under his tutelage, learning basic scripture, prayer techniques, and perhaps the rudiments of reading and writing. However, he later critiqued monastic formalism, accusing some monks of hypocrisy and even homosexuality, views that alienated him from Orthodox clergy. Returning to Pokrovskoye transformed, Rasputin appeared disheveled, with wild eyes and a fervent demeanor. He renounced meat and alcohol temporarily as habits resurfaced, prayed obsessively, and sang hymns with newfound passion. Villagers noted his changed behavior. He organized prayer meetings in his father's root cellar, attracting a small circle of devotees, mostly family and neighbors seeking spiritual guidance. These gatherings involved chanting, Bible readings, and discussions on sin and redemption, but rumors soon twisted them into something sinister. Whispers spread that Rasputin had joined the Khlysty, an underground sect known for ecstatic rituals, self-flagellation, and alleged orgies to achieve divine union. The Khlysty, from Khlysty, meaning whip, believed in transcending sin through extreme acts, a doctrine that fueled salacious tales about Rasputin. However, multiple investigations, including one by the Tobolsk consistory in 1907, found no evidence of sect membership. Historian Furman dismisses these as baseless smears, likely spread by jealous clergy or rivals. Instead, Rasputin's theology was a syncretic blend, orthodox piety mixed with folk mysticism, emphasizing direct communion with God over institutional rites. Emboldened, Rasputin resumed wandering as a Stranik, traversing Russia for months or years. His journeys took him to Kiev's Lavras and even Mount Athos in Greece around 1900, the epicenter of Eastern Orthodox monasticism. These travels honed his charisma. He returned with stories of miracles, relics, and encounters with saints, building a reputation as a holy man with healing gifts. By the early 1900s, his influence extended beyond Pokrovskoye, drawing pilgrims to his home for counsel. This grassroots fame set the stage for his entry into higher society. Rasputin's ascent to national prominence accelerated in the early 1900s, as his Siberian reputation reached urban elites. In 1904 or 1905, he visited Kazan, a Volga River hub, where he impressed local clergy and aristocrats with his raw spirituality and purported miracles. Despite persistent rumors of debauchery, affairs with female followers and excessive drinking, he secured endorsements from known figures. These opened doors to St. Petersburg, the imperial capital, where he arrived around 1903 or 1905. At the Alexander Nevsky Lavra, Rasputin met Archimandrite Theophan, the seminary inspector and confessor to Tsarina Alexandra's sister. Theophan, captivated by Rasputin's peasant authenticity, provided lodging and introductions to aristocratic salons. Turn-of-the-century Russia was gripped by a spiritual vogue. Occultism, theosophy, and Eastern mysticism fascinated the nobility, weary of rationalism. Foreign gurus like the Frenchman Nizier Anthelm Philippe had come and gone, but Rasputin, a native man of God, resonated more deeply. He frequented gatherings hosted by the Black Princesses, Militsa and Anastasia of Montenegro, married to Russian Grand Dukes and cousins to Tsar Nicholas II through alliances. On November 1, 1905, amid the turmoil of the 1905 revolution, Rasputin met Nicholas and Alexandra at Peterhof Palace. Nicholas's diary entry was understated. "We have made the acquaintance of a man of God, Grigori, from Tobolsk province." This encounter coincided with national unrest, strikes, mutinies, and demands for reform. But Rasputin presented himself as a humble pilgrim offering prayers for stability. He returned to Pokrovskoye but was summoned again in July 1906, gifting an icon of Saint Simeon, and in October, meeting the royal children. His foothold solidified through healing the Tsarevich Alexei, heir to the throne, afflicted with hemophilia, a genetic disorder causing uncontrolled bleeding, inherited from Alexandra's lineage, Queen Victoria's descendants. The condition was a state secret, heightening the family's desperation for cures beyond medical science. Rasputin's bond with the Romanovs deepened through his apparent ability to alleviate Alexei's suffering. Historians pinpoint October 1906 as when he first learned of the hemophilia, praying remotely during a hemorrhage. Alexei's recovery seemed miraculous, bolstering Alexandra's faith. Anna Vyrabova, the Tsarina's close friend and lady-in-waiting, became a staunch supporter, crediting Rasputin with divine intervention. A defining episode occurred in 1912 at the Royal Hunting Lodge in Spala, Poland. Alexei, then 8, suffered a severe internal hemorrhage after a carriage jolt, swelling his leg grotesquely and causing agony. Doctors despaired. Alexandra, in hysterics, telegraphed Rasputin in Siberia. His reply: "God has seen your tears and heard your prayers. Do not grieve. The little one will not die. Do not allow the doctors to bother him too much." Astonishingly, the bleeding ceased the next day. Surgeon Sergei Fedorov deemed it wholly inexplicable from a medical viewpoint. Explanations vary. Some attribute it to hypnosis, calming Alexei's stress and reducing blood pressure. Others note Rasputin's advice against aspirin, then used as a painkiller but unknowingly an anticoagulant. Historian Robert K. Massey calls it one of history's great mysteries, possibly a coincidence amplified by faith. Grateful, the Romanovs integrated Rasputin into their inner circle. He was appointed Lampadnik, tending palace icons, granting frequent access. Nicholas authorized his surname changed to Rasputinovi, New Rasputin, in 1906, symbolizing rebirth. Alexandra's attachment bordered on obsession. She referred to him as our friend, in letters, seeking his counsel on everything from politics to personal matters. Harold Schuckman describes him as an indispensable member of the royal entourage. With the children, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and Alexei, Rasputin played a folksy uncle role. Grand Duchess Olga Alexandrovna recalled him visiting in 1907, the girls in nightgowns, chatting casually. His telegrams were affectionate. To Maria: "My dear Pearl M., tell me how you talked with the sea, with nature. I am waiting for a detailed letter from you. A big kiss. Loving you, Grandpa." However, not all approved. Governess Sofia Tyacheva objected to his informal nursery visits in 1910, leading to a temporary ban. The Grand Duchesses pleaded for his return. Tyacheva was dismissed. Another aide, Maria Vishnyakova, accused rape but was fired after her own scandal. Rumors escalated. Cartoons depicted Rasputin seducing Alexandra and the daughters, though no evidence supports this. Nicholas exiled him briefly to Palestine in 1911, but the relationship endured until 1916. World War I, erupting in 1914, amplified Rasputin's power. Russia suffered catastrophic defeats, millions dead, supply shortages, and economic collapse, eroding faith in the Tsar. In 1915, Nicholas assumed personal command of the army at the front, leaving Alexandra in charge of domestic affairs. Isolated and German-born, she relied heavily on Rasputin for advice, who influenced ministerial appointments, earning the moniker, the Dark Force. Critics like Prime Minister Pyotr Stolypin, assassinated in 1911, and the secret police, Okhrana, monitored him, compiling dossiers on his excesses. By November 1916, Duma orator Vladimir Purishkevich thundered. The ministers have been turned into marionettes whose threads have been taken firmly in hand by Rasputin and the Empress Alexandra Fyodorovna, the evil genius of Russia. Rasputin's opposition to the war, advocating peace with Germany, further alienated nationalists. His interventions were erratic. He pushed for or against officials based on personal whims or bribes, contributing to governmental chaos. While some historians argue his influence was overstated, Nicholas retained final say. His presence symbolized the dynasty's detachment from reality. Rasputin's life was a whirlwind of scandal, blending genuine piety with hedonism. Labeled a heretic by clergy, he faced investigations. In 1907, Pokrovskoy priests denounced his false doctrines. A Tobolsk inquiry probed KHLYSTY links but cleared him. In Petersburg, Stolypin urged his banishment to no avail. His theology emphasized physical contact to drive out sin, leading to accusations of exploiting women. Followers like Kyania Berlitskaya claimed rape in 1909, turning former allies like Theophan against him. Rasputin indulged in alcohol-fueled nights at cabarets, boasting of conquests from prostitutes to society ladies. Pornographic pamphlets and cartoons proliferated, portraying him as a satyr corrupting the court. A near-fatal attack came on July 12, 1914, when Kyania Gusieva, a one-nosed beggar influenced by defrocked monk Iliador, Sergei Trifonov, stabbed him in Pokrovskoy. Screaming, "I have killed the Antichrist," she inflicted a grievous abdominal wound. Rasputin survived after surgery, but the incident highlighted his enemies. Iliador, once a friend, had turned foe after witnessing Rasputin's debauchery, fleeing to America and publishing exposés. By late 1916, Rasputin's foes coalesced. Prince Felix Yusupov, married to Nicholas's niece Irina, Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, and Purishkevich plotted his elimination, viewing him as the empire's cancer. On December 30, 1916, Yusupov lured Rasputin to his Moika Palace basement with promises of meeting Irina. They offered cyanide-laced cakes and wine. Astonishingly, he showed no effects, perhaps due to low dosage or his stomach's acidity neutralizing the poison. Frustrated, Yusupov shot him in the chest around 2:30 a.m. The conspirators celebrated, but Rasputin revived, attacking Yusupov and fleeing into the courtyard. Purishkevich fired twice, hitting him in the back and head. They beat him, bound his body, and dumped it in the icy Malaya Nevka River from the Bolshoi Petrovsky Bridge. Yusupov's 1927 memoir dramatized the event, spawning myths of Rasputin's indestructibility. However, autopsy by Professor Dmitry Kosoratov revealed 3 gunshot wounds, one to the forehead at close range. No poison, no drowning, lungs had no water, and post-mortem bruises. The body surfaced on January 1, 1917, frozen under ice. An investigation ensued, but the conspirators faced light punishment, exile rather than execution, due to public approval. Rasputin was buried quietly on January 2 at Anna Vyrabova's chapel in Tsarskoye Selo, attended by the Romanovs. In March 1917, revolutionaries exhumed and burned the corpse to prevent veneration. Grigori Rasputin's original grave no longer exists. After his assassination in December 1916, he was initially buried in a chapel in Alexander Park at Tsarskoye Selo, now Pushkin, near St. Petersburg. However, following the February Revolution in 1917, revolutionaries exhumed his body, transported it to a forest, and burned it to prevent it from becoming a site of veneration. Today, only memorials or markers stand at or near the historical site. Rasputin's death, mere months before the February Revolution toppled the monarchy, symbolized the Romanovs' fatal flaws: superstition, isolation, and poor judgment. His scandals discredited the regime, alienating nobility, clergy, and masses. The Bolsheviks later used him in propaganda to vilify Tsarism. His daughter Maria emigrated to the U.S., working as a circus performer and authoring defenses of her father until her death in 1977. Scholars like Douglas Smith in Rasputin, Faith, Power, and the Twilight of the Romanovs, 2016, demystify him, portraying a complex man, flawed, charismatic, and ultimately tragic, whose life mirrored Russia's turbulent soul. In the end, Rasputin's shadow faded with the flames of revolution, his body reduced to ashes as the Romanov dynasty crumbled. Yet his legend endures, a testament to the fragility of power, the allure of mysticism, and the chaos that one enigmatic soul can unleash upon an empire. And that was it. Hope you liked it. I'm personally glad to know the man behind that one song. If you have any suggestions or stories want me to tell, don't be shy and tell me in the comments or the channel email. Show us your love and support. Hit the like and subscribe button. And thank you. See you next time.